Hello again, and welcome back to a live chat with the OPP and our anti-rackets branch. Today we're going to be discussing Project Atlas. We have a few great guests here that are going to talk about our project. First of all, I want to start and give the land acknowledgement. In the spirit and the intent and truth reconciliation and the Commission's 94 calls to action, we acknowledge the traditional Indigenous territories that we gather upon. We recognize the diverse and unique groups of Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, North America, including their cultures and their languages. We're committing to building relationships with our First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. So this is really exciting. The OPP, this is trailblazing for us in the OPP with our project. It's tackling crypto investment frauds. So today we have Detective Sergeant Lynn Danny from our cyber-enabled fraud team, Anti-Rackets Branch, and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And we have Chris Sutton, who is a special constable and also a technical analyst with our cyber-enabled fraud team and the Anti-Rackets Branch. So thanks for having you guys here today. We're going to talk about Project Atlas, but first I want to get into the stats. Last year, according to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, $577 million were lost to fraud. That was reported by police or victims. Of that, $309 million of that was investment frauds. And of that, the majority was crypto investment frauds. So that's what leads us here today to chat about what's going on. We know that many of our fraudsters are committing these frauds are attached to global organized crime groups. So it's really important that we tackle this as law enforcement, as the public and governments. So today we're going to talk about what is Project Atlas. And so Lynn, I wonder if you can jump in and tell us exactly what the project's about.
Yeah, thanks John for having us. So Project Atlas is the OPP's cyber-enabled fraud team, or CEFT. It's our initiative to combat cryptocurrency investment fraud affecting people worldwide, and yes, of course, here in Ontario. The project focuses on different parts of it, but disrupting the fraud, supporting victims, and there's never a promise of recovering funds, but that is one of our goals, and also just to provide education to the public and on these scams.
It's incredible, and I think you really hit on a great piece. This is really victim-centric that we're doing in the OPP. We need to be able to support these people that are losing devastating amounts of money. What's interesting is some stats here that the project was launched as of November 18th, and it's going to continue for 5 weeks. So during this time, we're going to be providing public awareness. We're going to provide social media information. Our website is really great. We're encouraging the public to go to our website. And we're going to be doing media interviews to support the campaign. So Lynn, I wonder if you can tell me, what is the Cyber-Enabled Fraud Team?
Yes, so the Cyber-Enabled Fraud Team, also known as CEFT, it's made of specialized members from the OPP. It was created in 2023, so it's only been active for a little over a year now. We investigate and prevent frauds with a cyber component. It could be with or without cryptocurrency, support victims, as I said, and potential victims, so offering that education awareness, disrupting fraud. We tackle various online scams, obviously including these cryptocurrency investment frauds, but anything from phishing. It can target individuals, but also businesses, which obviously results in high dollar loss in our economy.
Yeah, the CEFT program is a pilot project within the OPP. It's really revolutionary. I enjoy working with these folks. These are our top caliber folks that really understand technology and cyber-enabled frauds. So Chris, I wonder if you can tell me what cryptocurrency is, because there's so much interest in the public. We see it online, we see it in social media. We've even seen movies like The Beekeeper and what have you that have different sort of components to that. So maybe you can let us know what it's all about.
Yeah, so cryptocurrency are various types, are commonly referred to as either digital or virtual currencies. And these are currencies ultimately that are underpinned by use of cryptography. Typically you have what we refer to as a public blockchain network associated to some of these assets. Some assets may be sort of underpinned or ingrained within the network itself, or you have other assets that provide the ability to be deployed on top. So these are what we refer to as tokens. So these are assets that are inherent to a specific network. And when it comes to the user's perspective of actually owning or custodying these funds, typically we see a lot of individuals go through what's called a custodial exchange. So this is something that you can think of a lot like a bank. You go to create a bank account or your exchange account. You would provide fiat or dollar currencies that would allow you to purchase those funds or assets. And you may custody those funds on the platform itself, or you also do have the option to custody those funds yourself by nature of a non-custodial wallet. Historically, we've seen, I'm sure lots of folks that are familiar with the term, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the first public blockchain networks. By design, it is rather simple. Typically, we see, or as we've seen sort of over the years, there's been emerging technologies where some of these networks are a lot more expressive. So when we talk about like Ethereum, for example, that's where this whole concept of tokens has come from originally. You have the ability to deploy small programs in the form of smart contracts to these networks. So there's a little bit more expressivity when it comes to some of these other ecosystems.
That's great. You know, when I first got into the crypto space, my head was really filled with a lot of information. And it's really, we're not trying to make crypto seem like a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's just like any other form of monetizing organized crime. They will latch on to whatever technology works best to launder the funds. So if you want to know more about crypto, I encourage you to go online, YouTube, and you can learn a lot more about what Chris was talking about. So Lynn, that takes us to crypto investment frauds. You and I both work at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, and it's just been a plague in Canada and Western countries, really around the world, and the devastating loss we've seen with victims. So I wonder if you can walk us through what crypto investment fraud is.
Sure. Cryptocurrency investment fraud is basically when people are tricked into putting their money into fake investments. They think they're legitimately investing into crypto, and sometimes it can start with an ad on social media. It could be through someone you may know. It could be dating sites. It could be you searching online on search engines, and you come across an ad or you come across information that you believe to be legitimate. And they basically there's promises of quick profits. There's usually a conversation. You start with a small investment and you have someone guiding you. Sometimes these individuals that are behind the fraud, they may guide you to download an app to set up cryptocurrency wallets. There's different ways of getting into it, but in all of them, what happens is that once you transfer the cryptocurrency, they often find that they either can't access their funds or that they can't withdraw them. Essentially, the money has been taken by the individuals behind the scam.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, we've had victims contact us that have lost $10 million. I had a victim and their husband lost $600,000, and they didn't realize they're victims until, you know, we educated much later. And, you know, we're also seeing a trend of what they call pig butchering. I don't like that term, but it's basically romance frauds that's turning the victims into crypto investment fraud victims as well. It's really devastating. So, Chris, we see so many threats in this landscape. I wonder if you can talk about how these threats are activated by the criminals and how they conduct these frauds.
Yeah, thanks, John. One of the largest areas that we've seen emerge over the last few years is this concept of what we call approval phishing or permit phishing. Before we sort of define exactly what that is, just to set the stage, in terms of tokens that are deployed to some of these networks, they have sort of certain standards or certain baseline behaviors that define sort of certain functionality with these tokens, some of which is being used ultimately for these threat actors. So there's this concept of what we would call an approval. So what an approval is ultimately a user's ability to provide another account or another user the ability to move tokens on their behalf. So if we compare it to almost like a bank account, this would be the equivalent of almost signing like a pre-authorization for a specific asset within your account. So at any point, someone could come in either transfer those funds out. Approvals themselves aren't ultimately nefarious. You see a lot of use cases for them or application when it comes to interacting on these networks. However, there is a warning that needs to be made when it comes to knowing who you're actually approving. If you approve a malicious account, you're essentially providing them a backdoor into your wallet, which they can leverage to their advantage and potentially move funds out of your wallet without your authorization. In the past, we've seen, as Lynn mentioned, sort of various almost proactive situations where a victim may be contacted through social media, or you may have a victim that's simply found a malicious website through a Google search. The great thing about approvals, though, is that using the approval itself, we can empower victims to revoke malicious approvals. They themselves alone have that ability, and by revoking it, you're removing any potential loss of funds in the future as a result of that nefarious actor's approval that was granted.
That's great. Our producer behind the scenes, Meredith, give a shout out to her. She was able to put something up on the screen. That information is also on our website, opp.ca, under the fraud section under Project Atlas. So there's a lot of great information for the victims, for the public, and it talks about approval phishing and how to prevent that. So we're learning tons in this short time with Chris and Lynn about cryptocurrency. Can you talk, Chris, about what a virtual asset provider is, or an exchange?
Yeah, so virtual asset service provider, you can kind of break it down into various categories. Ultimately, it's a business that is involved in some level with cryptocurrency exchange. So as John mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, there's this concept of what's called a custodial exchange. So think of it very much like a bank, where you're going ahead and registering an account, which you can then fund and purchase these assets. You also have crypto ATMs that are quite popular globally. Both are examples of what we would define as a VAS.
That's fantastic. And in Canada, we have legislation that the virtual asset providers have to register as money business services. So they work closely with the government. They work closely with the regulations. They work closely with law enforcement. So just so the public knows, there is legislation in place to regulate this. So Lynn, with Project Atlas, I wonder if you can tell us why and how the people will be reaching out to identified victims through Project Atlas.
Yeah, so through our investigation, we're able to identify individuals impacted by these scams. OPP investigators, with the help of local law enforcement in communities across Canada and around the world, actually, officers may reach out to these individuals who may have information or who may have been victimized. And this is to help further our investigation. Investigators will reach out by telephone and or email, and the purpose is for these proactive calls is to support potentially the recovery of funds, to support victims, to offer education, and also help with the revoking that approval.
I think it's really interesting you mentioned that we're going to be reaching out and how we're going to reach out, because we know that scammers out there try to impersonate different organizations, often in law enforcement or government. So there's that lack of trust we have there. So that's why we have a lot of our information that's really, really relevant on our website. So Lynn, can you let us know about our website we have and what's on there?
Yeah, I believe you're seeing it on the bottom of your screen, but I encourage everyone, please, if you're seeing this live or if you're seeing the recording afterwards, go visit at opp.ca/ATLAS, which is opp.ca Atlas. All the information is there and the steps are there. If you think you've been a victim of approval phishing, you can follow the steps to revoke your approval.
Yeah, we have a great website. Our graphic designer has done a great job. So I want to remind the public, so if you found yourself to be a victim or attempted victim, we encourage you, contact your local police of jurisdiction, but also contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, 1-888-495-8501, or you can visit their webpage and you can report online. We encourage people to report online because we just get so many calls and our call takers can only handle so much. The vast majority of frauds go unreported. The estimate is 5 to 10% of population reports to police or to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So in order to disrupt these activities of these criminals worldwide, it's really essential that victims or attempted victims come forward and report their frauds to law enforcement and to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Center is a great team of people, and we have a disruption program to try and take away the tools that the fraudsters have online. I just want to let you know there's no shame in being a victim. There shouldn't be. It happens to everyone. How many text messages do you get, phone calls, emails that are all scammers, right? So it's happening every day. So if you do fall victim, it's really important and it's critical that you report. And your information testimonials really do help law enforcement, the Anti-Fraud Center, find out what the trends are and allow us to better target these criminals. And they're globalized criminals. It's organized crime. Let's not kid ourselves here. And further information helps us tailor awareness campaigns and alert people to prevent themselves from being further victims. So I just want to wrap up here. I just want to say thank you to each one of you folks for coming here. I know we're busy trying to launch this project, and it's taking valuable time out. I challenge everyone online to talk to friends, families, coworkers about fraud. Think about someone who doesn't spend time online or watch the traditional news or what have you. We want to hear you folks get the message out for us. We all have a vital role to play, really, in protecting those who are vulnerable. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe.
Thank you.